All right, Ed Smith, former NFLer, played with the Falcons. I think he had a cup of coffee with the Andy Reid Eagles. I'll have to ask him that, if my memory serves. Local guy, two-sport guy, played baseball, played football. He's now covering the Arizona Cardinals for the Bleav Podcast Network, and he joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline as the Eagles and the Cardinals. Pretty important game for both these teams, wouldn't you say?
Mike Hunter, great to join you guys, man. I would absolutely say, and who would have thought, earlier in the year that this would be like one of those matchups we'd be looking forward to. I didn't know if the Cardinals would be doing as well as they, we've come to this point. Definitely didn't see the Eagles' struggles, but like I said, I think it's going to be a real interesting matchup, especially with the two different quarterback situations going on right now.
Now, Ed, when you look at this season, I mean, the expectations for the Cardinals, I think, were kind of tempered a little bit. I mean, 7-6, it's not like this looks like a Super Bowl team, but have they kind of exceeded expectations from what most people thought they would be?
Well, if you ask most people with common sense out here, that would be the case, Mike, but I think they teased everybody with that 5-2 start. At the beginning of the year with no training camp or limited training camp, no preseason games. I had the Cardinals pegged around 7 or 8 wins for the season. But they jumped out to that nice start and got everybody kind of excited. And now, as we've kind of dipped to the 7-6 record, everybody's more disappointed than they are encouraged. And that just goes to show sometimes that that hot start can kind of I think, like I said, set the expectations a little too high. I'm actually very pleased with what they've done to this season, to the point in the season so far. Minus a few things we'd all like to maybe make some minor corrections, but I'm trying to talk some of the people out here off the ledge right now because, the sky is falling after losing 4 out of 5, get back on track against the Giants last week.
Well, you saw the 5-2, and I guess that got people's expectations. What happened after that? What did you see change from the good start to kind of a rocky middle?
I think it was one of those things where, we kind of, set the pace a little bit. Nobody had a whole lot of film on this new version of the Cardinals. 5 or 6, 7 games in, all of a sudden teams were starting to, play against your tendencies and things like that. I think the biggest mark I would have against Kliff Kingsbury is that he hasn't made the adjustment, meaning, get the game plan a little more versatile or make those adjustments in game. He's come out in certain instances with the same game plan, and when it doesn't work, there's no counter punch. So, teams have figured some things out about us, used some different strategies. Again, definitely trying to kind of corral Kyler a little more. And it's going to take a little more creativity with the playbook, if you ask me, to, like on a weekly basis, be able to, make the mark.
When you look at this battle on Sunday, what matchup intrigues you the most? Is it DeAndre Hopkins versus Darius Slay? If Slay is active, is it Doug versus Kliff? You can even throw the quarterbacks out there. What is the most intriguing matchup for you?
I'm glad you brought that. That's a great question. I'm thinking more off the field than I am on, meaning the coaching matchup for me. Kingsbury, like I said, he's done a really good job to this point, but he's going to be up against Doug, Peterson with the things that he knows. And like I said, I think, last week we got back off the mat a little bit with a wounded Giants team. They were just decimated. I don't think they had any reason, in my opinion, to start Daniel Jones, but they did. He was a sitting duck. We got a little confidence, making that trip over there and coming back with the victory. I just hope it's not false confidence. So I hope, the coaching staff got back into the room and figured, hey, it's a new opponent, might not be as lame as the Giants, and we're going to have to come up with some different things. On the field, DeAndre's been a beast. I mean, minus him, our receiving core has not excited me much. You look at the disparity. He had 136 yards this past week, and then our second leading receiver had 27. I'm sure the Eagles are going to roll some coverages, try to take him away, and what will be our next step in terms of, finding that offense. So that's going to be real interesting to see what both all our coordinators, offensively and defensively, come up with for this matchup.
Ed Smith with us here, covers the Cardinals for the Bleav Podcast Network. Bleav in the Cardinals, former NFLer. We'll talk a little bit more about his journey as well, because you got a pretty cool one yourself, Ed. And, you talk about journeys. These two quarterbacks, Murray, similar to you, both played baseball and into college football, had a transfer. And then you have Hurts here, who had a transfer from Alabama over to Oklahoma. When you look at the quarterback matchup in this game, how the game or how that position has evolved so much, and you see what's going on with the Eagles, it seems that, just adding Hurts added such a dimension to their offense that they didn't have with Wentz, that really the whole league is trying to figure out ways to stop these guys.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, too, with these quarterbacks. It's not all about the arm these days, especially with these two in this matchup. I think with Murray, sometimes they try to downplay his running a little too much. I think part of our skid, and I'll go back to that 4 out of 5 that we lost. I think part of the skid did revolve around the fact that whether it was his shoulder was maybe a little more injured than we thought. It was almost like the running portion of his game was tempered a little bit, and maybe they were trying to keep him out of harm's way. But for me, that proved that when he's not dynamic, meaning in the running game, it really does take a whole lot away from his the attack of the offense. So. You don't want your quarterback out there, running around too much with the trees. But I do think for both of these quarterbacks, it's going to be really interesting to see how much they implement, getting them out of the pocket. Now, one of the things I think both defenses are going to try to do, I think the game plan was written a few weeks ago when we went over to play New England. Heavy pressure up the middle with discipline contained on the outsides, with your defensive ends. If you can bottle these guys up and then force them to throw from the pocket, from either standpoint, that really changes both offenses. So it might be almost like a mirror image of both attacks, going after each other's quarterback.
Speaking of defense, what made Hassan Reddick so successful last week, and do you think he can do that again against this banged up offensive line?
You know what helps him over there, Hunter? Daniel Jones being running around on one leg. that really helped. That helped a whole lot. When I saw how limited he was, and obviously ball security was an issue, and there's no reason for him. He should have never been out there on the field, But, I mean, we definitely got after him. It was almost like, in the wild, you watch those things on the Animal Planet when they see that wounded wildebeest or whatever it is out there. The lions and the tigers, man, they get after it. They smell the blood and they go get them. And that's exactly what we did this past week. I don't expect the same results, but I do hope we have the same aggression because, maybe we got off the mat a little bit and we're feeling like, hey, we can definitely get at it. And that's what we're going to do this week. Let's be aggressive. Let's go after Jalen. Maybe throw some things at him he hasn't seen. We have a week of film on him. Let's try to confuse this young quarterback. Don't sit back and let him get too comfortable like I think the Saints did this past week.
Ed, you look back at – first off, did you spend time with Andy here in Philly? Were you in Philly for a little while?
I was. I was there in 99 with Philly and Donovan and Doug and a whole bunch of dudes. Yeah, I was there.
All right, so you know Doug and you know Andy pretty well. I mean, when you look at this organization and Andy, as you know him, and then seeing Doug, I mean, what kind of guy, because people look at Doug around here sometimes like, is this all shucks? And like, people kind of like, what's going on? What can you tell us about Doug? You were a teammate.
Yeah, Doug, all those years ago, and it happened to me in both sports. I played, 9 years of minor league baseball. I see some of the guys I played with, go on to be managers and things like that. Same thing with Doug. It was, you could tell he was a student of the game. And while a lot of us, we were trying to figure out, like some of the younger guys, especially trying to figure out how soon practice was going to be over so we can get home or to the next meal or something like that. Doug was already like, you could see he was on a different level in terms of analyzing the game, trying to figure certain things out. And you can, when somebody like him turns into a coach later on, you can almost say, you know what, I should have seen that coming. And that was kind of how Doug was. Like I said, we had some pranksters on that team, not really, even Donovan at the time, Donovan loved to have fun, but Donovan Knapp. Whereas, like I said, Doug was really serious. And, like I said, all these years later, I'm seeing his success. I'm like, yeah, I should have saw that coming all the way.
What was Andy like? I mean, this is his first year. What a surprise! That was like a surprise hire. What was he like in year number one?
Andy, he was trying to figure it out. And, Andy, the thing that I remember most about Andy, he was such a good dude. He was a really nice dude. And, my tenure there was short. I was there about 6-7 games or whatever it was. I remember, I think there was another tight end that came available later in the season, and he decided to let me go. But even that was hard for him, and always just a nice guy. And one of the things I've never held any grudges or anything like that. It's been nice to watch him progress over the years and finally get that Super Bowl win out there in Kansas City. And I'll be doggone. He's, like I said, if you watch his growth from first year when I was there to now, like I said, he knows exactly what he's doing, and, very happy to see his success.
Now, you spent did you leave? You went from high school to the baseball minor leagues and then left that and went and played football?
Yeah, I played 9 years of minor league baseball right out of high school. I was with the White Sox, Brewers, Cubs, and Indians from 87 to 95, and that's when I made the switch. Went over to NFL or World League of American Football in 96, the spring. Got back here that summer, went into my first NFL camp. I spent that year on the Washington practice squad, and then spent a couple years in Atlanta, went to a Super Bowl, Detroit and Philly after that, and then ended up finishing in the XFL in 2001. So 15-year career, both sports, and I got all the bumps and bruises and everything to prove it.
That's unbelievable. And you're a local guy, too. You're Pemberton High School. You're not too far from us.
Class of 87, man. That's why I was excited to do this show, because I let all my people know back there that, I was going to be on. But, yeah, class of 87 from them, those Go Hornets, man.
Yeah, so the passion of the fans. And if the Eagles were to lose this game, they would essentially be eliminated. So it should be a very interesting one out there in Arizona. Ed Smith has been our guest. The Bleav Podcast Network, Bleav in the Cardinals. And, of course, you can hear the Eagles and the Cardinals coming up right here on 97.3 ESPN. And he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Ed, great stuff, man. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Hunter. Happy holidays to you guys and your family. Stay safe out there, man.